This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
The Chicago Bears have made a flurry of roster moves and have cut down to 53 players. First up, I want to talk about the players heading to injured reserve. The first guy is defensive end Jacob Martin. He was expected to be a heavy part of the pass rotation early on, but he injured his foot and he's been out for nearly a month. Martin is going to miss the first 4 games, but will be eligible to return week 5. The second player added to short-term IR was offensive tackle Larry Borom. A lot of people expected him to get cut, but I still believe he is our backup left tackle and swing tackle, easily worth $3 million to have a backup plan to protect our #1 pick. People were too quick to want to cut him. Borom is also eligible to return week 5. Dante Pettis was also added to the injured reserve, but his was the season-ending variety. Pettis is not eligible to return. The former Husky had a great preseason, but he has struggled staying healthy during his time in the NFL. Basically, there are 2 different versions of the injured reserve. Short-term IR, you can place up to 3 players that are eligible to return week 5. The season-ending IR means they are out for the season and not eligible to come back this year. Okay, now let's take a full list of the players that got released today. Khari Blasingame was one that kind of surprised me. I did not have him making the 53, but I thought he was one of the final bubble guys. According to reports, the team is expected to bring him back. They're going to make a couple corresponding moves in the next 24 hours, and Blasingame is expected to be re-signed. Both Brett Rypien and Austin Reed have been cut, meaning the Bears are rolling with just 2 quarterbacks as expected, but one of those 2 guys should be back to the practice squad. Brendan Bates, our rookie tight end from Kentucky, has also been released. The Bears do want to bring him back to the practice squad, but they might have a hard time doing so. Multiple teams have reportedly already expressed interest in Brendan Bates. Really hope the Bears can bring him back. No other real surprises on offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Jamari Cromwell was a great story. Hopefully he can come back to the practice squad. We cut 4 defensive tackles. Micah Baskerville was a bit of a surprise, and so was cutting Reddy Stewart. Adrian Colbert and Tavarius Moore both played well this preseason, but I said all along, Elijah Hicks' contributions on special teams are too important. Quick shout out to BetUS for sponsoring today's video.
Michael Vick at BetUS.com. Catch an incredible 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus 10% gambler's insurance. BetUS, my online sportsbook and casino.
But here is the final 53-man roster, at least for today, as the Bears did keep Travis Homer, and then they decided to go heavy in the trenches, keeping 10 offensive linemen, as both Doug Kramer and Bill Murray make the roster, and then also keeping 10 defensive linemen, as both Daniel Hardy and Dominique Robinson make the team. Basically, the Bears kept 1 extra defensive and offensive lineman, going with 10 each, 1 more than I expected. The team then went with only 5 linebackers and 6 cornerbacks. I expected those final 2 spots to go to Micah Baskerville and Reddy Stewart. Instead, the Bears went with Bill Murray and Dominique Robinson. That's a tough one here, but I do love that Daniel Hardy and Doug Kramer also made the roster. But I got 49 of the 53 players correct. Just a couple of bottom of the roster decisions that were different. However, I do expect more moves still to come. I did have some crazy comments from people the other day telling me that Elijah Hicks and Amen Ogbongbemiga would not make this roster. People overlook the value of guys who contribute on special teams. It's not always just about what they do on defense. Also had a lot of crazy comments about how Dom Rob and Velus wouldn't make it either. But hey, 49 out of 53 isn't bad. I think Patrick Scales and a couple of other players are going to be added to injured reserve, probably within the next 24 hours, and then a couple of other corresponding moves to finish out the 53-man roster. But I do fully expect a few more moves to be made. Ryan Bates could also probably go to the injured reserve, so could Patrick Scales, and potentially 1 or 2 other guys. Khari Blasingame is expected to be re-signed to the active roster. I'll wait until those other moves are made to fully break it down, but this is what we have so far. The Bears went heavy in the trenches, 10 O-line, 10 D-line, and then they went short at linebacker and cornerback. The biggest surprise to me was that they cut both Greg Stroman Jr. and Reddy Stewart. Really hoping we can bring Reddy Stewart and Brendan Bates back to the practice squad, but this is a really solid roster overall. I think keeping extra players in the trenches makes sense. The thing that stands out here is 7 defensive ends on the roster, 6 on the 53, and then Jacob Martin on the injured reserve. It's clear that Eric Washington had an effect keeping all these defensive ends around. I was also a bit surprised that Travis Homer made the roster, but maybe I overlooked his special teams contributions myself. I've also seen people saying that Reddy Stewart was cut for Jalen Jones or stuff like that, but I want to be clear here. The 2 extra players I believe were kept on the roster were Dominique Robinson and Bill Murray. Jalen Jones was going to make this team either way. Eamon Ogbongbemiga was going to make this roster either way. Special teams do matter. Meanwhile, Reddy Stewart and Micah Baskerville were the guys that probably got cut for Dom Robb and Bill Murray, or even Daniel Hardy and Doug Kramer. But those were the final guys at the bottom of the roster. But either way, the extra players that kept around were on the offensive and defensive lines. I love the extra commitment to the trenches, and I think overall Ryan Poles has clearly leveled up and upgraded the Chicago Bears roster. So now as we sit here, we are just 12 days away from the regular season kicking off against the Titans, and we're finally going to find out if this is going to result in more wins. I don't think Ryan Poles is done yet. There have been some surprise cuts around the NFL. The Vikings cut recent first-round pick safety Lewis Cine. The Commanders cut recent third-round pick Ricky Stromberg, a center I really liked coming out of Arkansas. He's not healthy right now, but I would like to have another developmental center on the roster. The Bengals also cut Travis Bell, a guy that we know Ryan Poles really liked, but there are going to be a lot of other moves happening around the NFL, and the Bears will be making more moves. Stay tuned and let me know what you guys think of this initial 53-man roster. Remember to hit that like button for me. Thanks again to BetUS for sponsoring today's video. And until next time, bear down.